The next part shows the unit map. The unit map includes a lot of the Daily 5 Read to Self sections, but it also includes mini lessons. So the first day, it starts with the foundation lesson, 3 Ways to Read a Book. We start with this because students are learning how to read to self, and they learn the different ways that they can read to self. One being reading the words, reading the pictures, and summarizing. This week we will not be working on the summarizing part because that will be introduced next week. Then we launch Read to Self. We discuss the ways that what the students should be doing during Read to Self and what the teacher will be doing. We discuss stamina, what it looks like to be reading to self successfully, and then we do a session of Read to Self. During these sessions, they only last as long as the students can sustain their stamina. This means that once one or two students, start fidgeting, not reading the book, maybe talking to someone next to them, the Read to Self session ends. We write down how long we were able to go, and we work on that throughout the rest of the year. We then have another mini lesson, a foundation lesson. This was when we work on some basic phonics skills because it is the first week of school, introduce vocabulary, and discuss the target skills for the week, which is story structure. Then they do another round of Read to Self. You're going to see the rounds of Read to Self constantly throughout the 5 days. The next day, they do another foundation lesson, and it teaches them how to pick good fit books for themselves. They do a session of Read to Self. They also, right before this Read to Self, they get to pick books to go in their book bin. Then we're going to do a mini lesson where we're working on story structure and a little bit of summarizing. And then they have an exit ticket. This exit ticket is to see if the students are understanding the components of story structure. The next day, they do another foundation lesson. So during the Daily 5, the students get to choose where they're going to sit. They can sit in chairs, they can sit on the floor, they can lay on the floor, but we have a mini lesson on how do we choose a spot to read, or in future weeks, where to write, or where to read with a partner. So we do a whole lesson on how to find a good spot. Then they do a round of Read to Self. We have another focus lesson. We do a brief phonics. We go over the vocabulary, and then we work on some text-based comprehension. So as we read through the text, we're asking questions and discussing the text. The students are then going to move into group work. So they're going to get a leveled reader. They're going to be put in leveled groups. So a low-leveled group is going to get the low-leveled reader that matches the skills for the week. They're then going to fill out a story map to go with the leveled reader. After this group work, they're going to do another round of Read to Self. Each time they do Read to Self, we're building that stamina. So the Read to Self might take longer because some sessions might include reviewing what it looks like to be in a successful station, and then maybe debriefing afterwards, discussing, well, what could we work on better? Do we need to add anything to our eye chart saying what the student should be looking like during Read to Self? Day 4 is all focused on context clues. So we're going to do a mini lesson on context clues. Then we're going to do a Read to Self. Then we're going to do another mini lesson on context clues with the students helping with part of the work. Then we're going to do another Read to Self. Then they're going to do partner work with context clues. Then we're going to end with a Kahoot. So this is when our technology comes in. The Kahoot shows me if the whole class is understanding context clues, and if they're not, then I would know that maybe next week we need to focus a little more on context clues and revisit it more often. The last day, we are going to have a summative assessment. We'll start the lesson on reviewing the vocabulary words, some of the phonics, and the story. This review will be done using retelling cards. So it shows the picture on one side, and I ask questions about what's happening in the story. Tell me about the characters, what happens next, what happened before, stuff like that. They'll do a session of Read to Self. They'll do a focus lesson on the second text for the week. It's an informative text. It's just a short, quick lesson on picking out information through an informative text and what an informative text is. Then they have their summative assessment. Down here it shows the materials and the standards for each lesson. The first day, I include a lot of brain breaks just because, they're just getting back into the swing of things. These are the vocabulary cards that the students they'll see this side, and I ask the questions from this side. There's a lot of talking between partners during this, and they're all set up similarly. At the bottom, it shows the comprehension questions for the test and the resources. I am working currently on reading through the Cafe book, which discusses how more information on the whole group instruction during the daily 5 and what the students will be doing during small groups. So that I will be working on before school starts to make my reading block the best setup that it can be for all students in my classroom.